Hello and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in business and in life and simplify them. Now, friends, I love it so much when I get to bring my own friends onto the podcast. And this girl, you heard her in season 1, and I thought, you know what? Let's bring her back again. Actually, let's bring her back for a 5-part series throughout the 2019 year. We started off by talking about the 5 pillars of non-negotiable self-care. She told us about pillar 1, which is all about cooking. But today, my friends, I want to talk about sleep. So my friend is Carly Pollack. She's the author of Feed Your Soul and is the founder of Nutritional Wisdom, a thriving private practice based in Austin, Texas. She's a clinical, certified nutritionist with a master's degree in holistic nutrition. And she's also been awarded, no small thing to sneeze at, Best Nutritionist in Austin, Texas, 5 years running. She's helped over 10,000 people achieve their health and happiness goals, and one of those 10,000 is in fact me. So I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast today, Carly Pollack. Hey, welcome back.
Hey, so happy to be back.
Oh my goodness, girl. So this pillar, I really feel like, is one that people go, oh yeah, sleep, that's really important. Yeah, whatever. But then they don't actually take it seriously, that this is a big deal when it comes to non-negotiable self-care. Can you break it down for us and talk to us first about the science behind sleep? Like, why is it so important and what happens to us when we sleep?
Ultimately, if we're not sleeping, we're not healing. It's something to remember. If we're not sleeping, we're not healing. During the day, we're using our bodies and ultimately we're breaking them down in a sense. And sleep is that time for repair. Mm-hmm. There's something called your circadian rhythm, and it happens whether you're sleeping or not. It's a 24-hour wake and sleep cycle. It's so fascinating that between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. is the body's time for physical repair. You're releasing human growth hormone. The body is repairing used muscles and, organs and tissues. And then from the hours of 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. is the body's time for psychogenic repair, or what we would consider hormonal repair. Mm-hmm. And if you're not sleeping between those hours, you don't get that repair. There's a difference between resting and healing. So if you take a nap from, 3 o'clock to 4:30, that's a really good rest, but you're not getting that repair that you would during those specific hours. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy to me. And I mean, I like to also just fathom the fact that, sleep is so important that if I was like totally eating absolute wholesome food 100% of the time and totally at the gym and working out all the time, but not sleeping, I would be hot mess express. Is that what you're saying
Absolutely.
to me?
I would say sleep is just as important. When people think about health, they say, okay, I want to make sure I'm eating well and I got to exercise. Mm-hmm. And the story ends there. It's a big piece of the story, but if you don't put in sleep and some of the other non-negotiables we'll talk about, there's no way to ultimately be at the top of your health and vitality game if you're not getting your Z's.
Right. So why it's so darn important to our health is rest, recovery. It's giving your body a chance to slow down its digestion, right? What else is going on?
You know what? I pulled this quote up for you, which the funny thing is I was going to look for it last night and I put myself to sleep instead. So
Atta girl.
It was getting too late. I said, well, here's my bedtime. I'll look it up this morning. So here's this quote that only one night of where you get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, your natural killer cells, the ones that attack the cancer cells that appear in your body every day, drop by 70%. Or that a lack of sleep is linked to cancer, bowel, prostate, and breast cancer, or even just that the World Health Organization has classed any form of nighttime shift work as a possible and probable carcinogen.
Bonkers, right?
So just one piece of what happens when we sleep are these natural killer cells, but your hormones are balancing. Mm-hmm. Think about how many women have hormone imbalance, and not just reproductive hormone imbalance when I talk about PMS or high estrogen, but your adrenal glands, which are the glands that are responsible for managing your stress response. Mm-hmm. So for all of us that would rate our stress levels on a scale of 1 to 10 over a 5, we desperately need that sleep, or else it's the equivalent of picking up your cell phone in the morning and it's at 25% battery. How do you expect to get through the day without that thing crashing? Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing.
I imagine also, I'm thinking of a beloved friend of mine who will remain unnamed just for confidentiality's sake, where, if she spirals through a process of anxiety, stress, depression, it also triggers her insomnia. And so it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Like, do you know how or ways or tips that if she's listening right now could break that cycle? And by the way, it's not me, but I've certainly felt it.
I have a friend. AKA, help me.
Yes.
There are logistical things, tactical things that she can do, such as retraining her sleep by taking melatonin at night, 3 milligrams of melatonin, by taking magnesium at night, which we call nature's Valium, so taking about 500 milligrams of magnesium at night, by doing things like making sure she's staying away from blue light from screens, by keeping her room really dark and cold, reading at night next to candlelight. Sounds so romantic, but especially with yourself, it's a great thing. But then there are mental, spiritual, emotional things that she can do, which I am always wanting to get to the root of why someone is having a symptom. So if the symptom that pops up at the surface is she can't fall asleep, I would like to go even deeper and see what's really causing that mental chaos that's telling every cell of her body it is not time to prepare for sleep, it is time to fight or flight. And so cortisol and adrenaline are being released and not allowing her natural sleep hormones to ease her into sleep.
So you touched on it, and I really want to dive into this, like simple, practical tips on really setting up your bedroom and your nightly habits up for success. So let's break that all down and go a little bit deeper into this. What's working for you?
Number one most important thing when it comes to sleep is you want to go to sleep and wake up at the same time every single day. Mm-hmm. That includes weekends. Mm-hmm. I give myself no more than an hour time window on the weekends, but I give myself a bedtime. It sounds so ridiculous, but I have a bedtime, and a half hour before that bedtime, I start to prepare for sleep because I do not know why it takes me a full 30 minutes to stop what I'm doing, and then all of a sudden there's something in the kitchen. I don't know, Mary, but I need 30 minutes before I am in bed, lights off. So if you say I'm going to go to bed by 10, which is my prescription for when everyone should be in bed, lights out, to get that circadian rhythm going, then at 9:30, I have an alarm that goes off on my phone, and I stick to it. So if I'm right in the middle of something, that computer gets shut down. If I'm on Instagram or if I'm writing or whatever I'm doing, it's just a hard stop, and I call it a hard stop. My alarm says hard stop.
That's great. And I like that idea of setting a nice little ping on your phone that just says, okay, this is you time. And I will be the first to admit it. I, break my own rules when it comes to bedtimes as well, of like, oh, just one more email. My husband hates it when I say that. One more email, right? But you really do have to honor that, because I think it's almost like you're saying back to yourself, like, do I respect and give you what you want, body? And if you say no over and over and over again, your body's going to start not trusting that you're going to give it what it needs to be nourished and nurtured, right? I mean, we all do it, though.
Absolutely. And you'll hear me say over and over again, like a broken record, that this is all about the mind, and that the game of health is 90% mental and 10% logistics. Yes, there are things that we ultimately need to do, but what drives us to do those things day after day are the stories that we create, that, our thoughts drive our emotions, which ultimately dictate our behaviors. That means that I need to have a really strong story when that alarm goes off at 9:30. And what I do is I attach a lot of pleasure to going to sleep at that time. I also, at the same time, attach a lot of pain. This is what this looks like. The pleasure is I start to think about my warm bed, getting those Z's, waking up in the morning when the alarm goes off, hopping out of bed and doing the things that I need to do in the morning, exercise, meditate, all the things that really, truly make me feel happy and fulfilled. So I visualize that. Then I visualize the pain of if I don't go to sleep, which is for me right now, going to sleep at 10:30, 11:30, and then my baby's going to wake up at 1 to nurse. And it's going to be at that moment that I think to myself, man, I wish I went to sleep earlier.
Yeah.
Then I visualize myself pressing the snooze button in the morning, skipping that workout, skipping the meditation, feeling rushed on the way to work, eating, sugar and carbohydrates, because that's another thing that happens when you don't get that human growth hormone release at night. You're naturally inclined to crave sugar. And the reason behind this is that when you sleep, your serotonin levels, which are that feel-good neurotransmitter in your brain, they replenish. When you don't sleep, serotonin's low. The easiest way to get your serotonin back up is to eat sugar.
Yeah. And that's obviously when you have a crappy night's sleep and you're like, oh, I just need a giant cup of coffee, or worse, somebody that gets like one of those monster size Red Bulls or whatever, like this is what's going to power me through because I've got a long day ahead, and it's just, you're just setting yourself up for disaster, right?
And notice, some of us will be driven more by pleasure and some of us will be driven more by the avoidance of pain.
Yeah.
So for me to go into that story and then I'll just keep taking it further and further. It's like, and then I won't work out and then I will be unhappy with my body. And then finally I'm thinking, well, just go to bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, once you do this and you're in the practice of this for a couple of weeks, I don't even need to go through the whole story because I've gone through it so many times. The alarm goes off. I know what I need to do. That voice can start going, oh, well, the pleasure and pain. And I'm thinking, okay, I've been through, this is not my first rodeo. I've been through these stories and I get to bed.
Well, and I can talk from my own personal, experience is that there are times, especially when you've got little ones at home and you've just put them down for the night and it's like everything's silent in the house. Let's say it's about 10 o'clock at night and you're like, but Carly, I just want to watch a bit of Netflix. Like, don't I deserve this? I know I've said this myself. I'm just a little, just me time instead of going to sleep. Ugh.
A note to parents is that you just do the best you can.
Yes.
And it is even more important that when your baby goes to sleep, there are a few nights per week where when she goes to sleep at 7:30, I get in bed and I actually work from bed for an hour, but I'm already laying down. So physically, my body's already in bed under the covers. I'll do a little bit of work and then, or whatever it is, maybe you're watching Netflix from your computer in bed and then by 8:30, I'm going to sleep. There is a way to, kind of replenish yourself by going to sleep earlier than that 10 p.m. So, here's all this information that we're giving people. I will say that once or twice a week, I have that hour window where I say, you know what? It's usually Thursday for me because I've worked hard all week and the weekend's coming. And I say, you know what? I'm going to go to sleep a little bit later. I'm going to give myself that one episode or that chapter in the book that I'm reading. And Thursday, I tend to go to sleep a little later. But if that hour window is something you stick to, you're going to be far healthier than staying up one night till midnight because you feel like you've got this artistic juice going. And you bring up such a good point about feeling like you want your time at night.
Yeah.
It's about changing the story. I'd so much rather you get up an hour earlier before, my baby wakes up at 7:30. When I'm chasing sleep, I don't wake up until she wakes up because I'm so exhausted. I'm waiting till the very last minute. She's the one slapping my face and my, to get me up.
Yeah.
If if you go to bed at the right time, you can wake up at 6 in the morning, and I would then have an hour and a half while I'm in much more mental clarity. The whole day hasn't, zapped me of energy. People get that second wind at night, but that is a symptom of adrenal fatigue. That second wind. We're not supposed to have a second wind. Morning is when we're supposed to feel most productive. So if anyone listening or watching says, oh, but I do my best work at night, it's really a retraining of that story. And yes, it might take a week where you wake up and you feel drowsy and you go, oh, she's wrong, I'm not doing my best work. But you've got to really get through that period of adjustment. And I'm telling you, there's only 24 hours in a day. And so shifting it to where you're sleeping according to your circadian rhythm and then waking up in the morning and doing your best work, it's the ultimate best thing you could do. You're not losing time.
I 100% agree with that. I would say that in my 20s, I was certainly a person that was like, oh yeah, my best work's night owl, like late at night. But now in my early 40s, and now that I have small children as well, I 100% agree. I love getting up super early in the morning just to have that me time when I'm crisp, fresh, refreshed, and well, like just all the good things. So, and it's nice and quiet. And there's sunrise. You get to watch that as well. Like, it's beautiful.
And one last thing, which is I know we wouldn't wake up at 6 in the morning and watch Netflix, but I have a tool that I call the rocking chair test. And the rocking chair test is when I'm 80 years old, sitting in a rocking chair.
Yeah.
Will I care? Usually I use this as a stress test when I'm stressed about something. I say, when I'm 80 years old, am I still going to be stressed about this? Because if I don't give a crap about it, then I really don't want to put my body into stress now because of it. But think about, okay, you missed that Netflix. You won't care. So in the morning, you're doing all these things that are actually productive, that are moving you towards achievement and fulfillment. These are the things that really matter. All the stuff that I'm doing from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. is zoning out. I'm on social media. I'm watching Netflix. I'm writing emails that ultimately are just busy work. And you write an email, you say to your husband just one email. Well, those people are up and then they write you back. When I write my emails, I'm like, nobody write me back. I just want to get my inbox cleared. And so all of that I consider busy work. And you notice when you wake up first thing in the morning, you're doing the things that are ultimately important to you. You will not care that you sacrifice that Netflix episode that, you won't remember in a year from now, let alone when you're 80.
Yes, I 100% agree. By the way, this episode sponsored by Netflix. No, I'm just kidding.
We love you, Netflix.
Right, you're doing great on the weekend or in the daytime or the early morning. Who knows? All right, so let's go back to what you said earlier, because I think you've hit on something that's a really important point. This is in your book, Feed Your Soul, as well, about talking about pain versus pleasure and rooting and anchoring a thing to your pleasure side so that you look at it as something to look forward to rather than, this is me having to do something I don't want to do. So here's one thing that's working for me right now. And it's silly, but it's working. And so I'll give it to the world. So I live in Nottingham, England, where it's bitterly cold in the wintertime. And I have one of those hot water bottles that you can fill with warm water, but it's also really cozy, like a teddy bear. And so there is some delight in getting crawled under the duvet and the comforter, and it's already in there warming the bed that I can cuddle up with. It's like little things like that, right? Where you're retraining the brain and you're saying, oh no, this is a good thing. I want to get under the covers, right?
One of the most important tools to retrain your brain are those pain and pleasure associations. Recognize that anything you do that you do consistently, it's because you attach pleasure to doing it.
Yeah.
Hands down. No one does anything consistently that they attach pain to unless the pain of not doing it is greater than the pain of doing it, which we could say, in effect, then is pleasurable to do it.
Yeah.
Anything. I want everyone listening now to just stop and think about one thing that they do for their health that they say, you know what, I'm actually pretty good at doing this. Whether it's, I'm really good at drinking water or exercising or cooking my own food, or maybe it's something in business or in parenting that they do really well. Look at the list of pleasure you attach to it. And now think of something you go, man, my life would be so much better, easier, simpler if I could just do this thing, but I don't do it. And then if I asked you to write down on a piece of paper all of the thoughts and stories you have about it, they would all be painful.
Yeah, right. And so you avoid pain at all costs, right? And
It's
so
a survival mechanism. So it's how we're wired. We are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. It was created as a way to keep us alive because we would avoid dying, which would be pretty painful, or going hungry, or not having shelter.
Yeah.
And so this mechanism to seek pleasure was really evolved out of survival. But now that most of our survival needs are met for most of us, shelter, water, food, now we're having to use this for day-to-day things of living our best life, which is really not how the mind is set up. That's why we have trouble.
Yeah. And, we follow all the tips that you talked about earlier. So we keep our bedroom super dark. I mean, it's like, vampires live in our bedroom. It's very cold in our bedroom. And I kind of like warm weather. I'm a Texas girl, so I struggle with that. But again, when I have the duvet and I have the hot water bottle underneath, I kind of cozy on down and then it makes it all better. But we have had noise machines in the past, but that was really when the kids were kind of younger and that white noise helps them go to sleep. But yeah, the duvet is giant. It's heavy. And, all of those things that are helpful for you to get a good night's rest. Is there anything else?
I would mention food here because what you eat for dinner and how long you go from eating dinner to when you go to sleep is going to have an effect on your blood sugar. There's this magic window. If you're trying to maintain your body weight and or lose fat, I don't want you eating right before bed. We want to have around a 12-hour fast every night. So that means if I stop eating at 7:30, I won't eat again until 7:30 the next morning, which is really amazing for digestion and longevity and weight loss and many other things. It's called intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
So this 12-hour window, well, if I eat at 7:30 and I don't go to sleep until 11 or 11:30, it's just too long. My blood sugar will drop, which will make it very hard for me to go to sleep. Then I might wander into the kitchen and eat something sugary, which will activate a blood sugar spike, an insulin spike, an adrenaline spike, and then it's hard to fall asleep. So this magic window is you want to stop eating about 3 or so hours before bed, but you don't want to go 5 hours because then your head hits a pillow, you go, kind of hungry.
Yeah.
And then your stomach's talking to you and it's hard to fall asleep. For dinner, I would eat a heavy fat, whether that's an oil that you're cooking your food in, avocados, nuts and seeds, coconut milk, perhaps just a little bit of fat from an animal product that you're eating that's hopefully grass-fed, pasture-raised, and then very light on the carbohydrates. Remember that carbohydrates break down into energy, and you don't really need energy after your dinner meal because you're winding down. If someone's eating heavier carbohydrate, I want them to eat it earlier in the day. Breakfast, mid-morning snack is fantastic to have that oatmeal, sweet potato. And then for dinner, just some protein, vegetables, and a good quality fat will ensure that when your head hits the pillow, you're not starving and you've set your hormones up for repair.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously, you're not going to do a big spaghetti and meatballs right before you go to bed. Your tummy will just feel like, whoa, like it would just not be pleasurable in any way, shape, or form. And I love that, thinking about the different types of foods to eat and having that 12 hours before, like the last time you eat, and 12 hours until you eat again when you wake up the next morning. So
if you are hungry, because some people say, well, man, the window didn't work, or, there are times I'm not perfect where it's 9:00 and I'm about to get ready for getting ready for bed. 9:00 is to get ready mentally so that 9:30 I can actually get ready for bed. And I go, oh man, I'm hungry. Maybe I ate at 5:30 and it was just totally off. Yeah. Then I want you to go into the kitchen and just eat a fat source, a spoonful of almond butter, a handful of nuts, a quarter of an avocado with sea salt. Just a little bit of fat. You really only need a few bites of something to coat your stomach. Some nights I'll just have a cup of almond milk and I'll warm it up, which is really soothing for night, just to get you to sleep.
Yeah, I've tried almond milk warmed up with a little bit of cinnamon as well. Like it makes it just really tasty, especially in the wintertime.
And raw cacao, which has a ton of magnesium, which we said before is nature's Valium. It's so great to get at night. If you mix a little bit of cinnamon and cacao, now you have what I would consider a medicinal drink.
Yeah.
If you're drinking hot chocolate without the sugar, I'll add stevia, which is a natural sweetener, a plant that we grow in our garden.
Brilliant. And I'll put the links in the show notes for people if you just want a little bit more information about types of
recipe
foods. Yes, perfect.
I'll give you a recipe,
So we can link back to Carly and her brilliant brain. So I know that you also talk about really helping, it's part of like discipline, like really training your mind and having better discipline when it comes to sleep. So can you talk to us about that? Like how can people start to build that better discipline?
In general, for your health, I think discipline is one of the most important things. And I define discipline as doing the things that you don't feel like doing because now you and I know we've attached a pain story to it.
Yeah.
Discipline with sleep is going to sleep when you don't feel like it. Now, you can just exercise discipline, which is put yourself on a bedtime, or you can do the deeper work, which is attach so much pleasure to it so that it doesn't even feel so hard to do. But there are just some things where maybe you don't feel like going through the whole story and saying, oh, there's so much pleasure in getting into my warm bed. Then fine, you're going to be using discipline. And that is going to sleep at the same time every night uses an incredible amount of discipline. In fact, I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. It's such a fantastic book. He originally wrote this book for writers. And then he said, you know what? It's not just writers that meet this. He calls it resistance. It's everybody, that anytime you're trying to do something where you're bringing your life to a higher level, you're going to meet with resistance. It's just the natural flow of things. When I read that book, I realized I want to then start to look for resistance. I don't want it to come find me where I go, ooh, that was really hard to do, or ooh, I didn't do that thing. That must be resistance. Yeah. So every night I ask myself a series of questions. I ask myself 4 questions every single night in a way to take inventory. One of the questions is, how did I overcome resistance today? How did I use discipline to overcome that uncomfortable feeling of something that was good for me that I was attaching pain to? And a lot of the time the answer is, well, I'm in bed and I don't really want to be. I want to be watching that extra Netflix episode. I want to be getting work done. I want to be on social media. And many nights I will tell you, Mary, that my answer to how I overcame resistance is, well, my butt's in bed right now, so there's my answer.
Yeah. And it's the little things like that. What are the other questions you ask yourself?
The first question I ask is, what did I do today that was great? Because we don't celebrate ourselves enough. And I want to be able to ride my own butt. I want to be able to look at my behaviors and say, okay, this needs to be changed. But you can't do that unless you're celebrating yourself. We tend to always call out what's wrong and never call out what's right.
Yeah.
So I say, what do I do today that was great? The second question I ask is, what could I improve? The third question is, what am I going to do tomorrow to put this improvement into action? Yeah. So, yesterday, what I did was great. My answer last night was that I had a really great balance of the outer human doing things throughout the day and having that inner feeling of presence and awareness, and allowing my mental voice to just really speak without me attaching so much to it. That's what I did really great. What I could improve is that I could have meditated yesterday. I didn't meditate. Yeah. So today I woke up, because I asked myself those questions. I said, tomorrow I am going to carve out time for meditation. I'm going to put it on my calendar as if it were an appointment, because I always make my appointments. And I'm going to attach a lot of pleasure to it. Yeah. And so today that's what I plan to do. Asking yourself those questions I believe keeps you from repeating the same behaviors every single day and then, hitting your head against the wall going, why do I keep doing this thing? Well, it's that inventory that I'm taking at night and the plan that I'm making that's keeping me from rewriting these behaviors.
Yeah, and I love that. I love the simplicity of those 4 questions, and I love the ability to take a daily inventory. I think sometimes, well, I'll be the first to admit, I have goldfish brain, so I forget things, and, then I just hit the big red F it button, and then I just carry on. So this is a really great practice, I think, for just making sure you're coming back to center every single day. What's most important to you, your core values, and nourishing yourself. So I love that. We'll put these 4 questions in our show notes for people to check out as well. You also talk about like process versus outcome in your book. And I mean, I think this relates to what you're talking about when it comes to building discipline for sleep, like looking at the process versus the outcome. Can you go a bit more into that?
Where we put our focus is what we're going to feel. Mm-hmm. Think about what's going on in the world right now. There's so much to focus on that's negative that would make us feel anxious and out of control. And then there's so much to focus on that's positive. There's always good and there's always bad. It's where you put your focus on that makes that is what you feel, and what you feel is your reality. Yeah. Now, in any endeavor that you're embarking on, whether it's business, parenting, your health, there's going to be 2 components. There's going to be the process, which is what you need to do. It tends to be your to-do list, the long list of to-dos. And then the outcome is what you're going to receive when you do the to-do list on a consistent basis. Well, my opinion, and I say to all my clients and to my listeners, someone prove me wrong. I am yet to be proved wrong, but I want someone to prove me wrong on this, that anything you do in life that's really worth it, there's always going to be pain attached to the process. Yeah. There's always pain. Having a baby, raising children, growing a business, saving money, marriage. It's like I'm waiting for something in life to be really worth it. That's all pleasure. But I see that there is pain attached to the process. But the outcome is worth its weight in gold. It's just so beyond anything that we could ever experience in the pain of the process. So what I ask people to do is when you're embarking on some new endeavor that is going to improve or up-level your life, I want you every single day to focus on the outcome by simply saying, what will I gain by doing this thing? Mm-hmm. If you focus on the process of being healthy, you're going to fail because there's just so much stuff you need to do. If you focus on the process of sleep, you're going to fail. But if you focus on the outcome of what this creates for you, you'll be willing to do anything. And I've learned that since I had a home birth. I'm fully aware of getting through the process of something extremely physically painful, emotionally painful, in order to have the outcome, which is my, sweet baby girl. Yeah. And now it's the process of raising her versus the outcome of those cuddles.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think this is all incredibly wise information to help us reframe how we look at self-care and how we look at sleep as well. So just a reminder to everybody that's listening, Carly has released her first book, and I'm so excited for you to have this out in the world. This is your second baby here, indeed.
It is. And it releases today.
Woo! So congratulations to that.
Thank you.
Your book is called Feed Your Soul, Nutritional Wisdom to Lose Weight Permanently and Live Fulfilled. Again, click the link in the show notes for you to pick up this book. And I've read it myself. I think it's so good. And I don't say that about a lot of books. And I'm so excited to see your next book when it comes out and the next one after that. And don't forget, you can find Carly online at carlypollack.com. Where do you hang out the most when it comes to social media?
I would say Instagram.
Okay.
I'm all up in the Instagram stories.
Okay, perfect. So that's Instagram.com/Carly Pollack. And again, all the links will be in the show notes for people to be able to connect with you online as well. So Carly, I have a few questions I always like to ask everybody at the end of the episode. And first and foremost, are there any books out there or blogs that you're reading right now that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging you a bit in your belief system?
Right now I'm reading a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. I have read the book before. His book I read or try to read once a year, and it is just the most fantastic, amazing, spiritual book, and it should be required reading. It's a book that's changed my life. It's amazing, amazing, amazing.
Wow! So we'll put a link in the show notes for that one as well. That you're adding a book to my must read list. If Carly says so, I'm going to read this book. So,
yes.
Gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me what you're grateful for right now, right here in this moment.
I am grateful for this moment. The present moment, whatever it is, the fact that, you and I are connected and that we're sharing this information with people that I hope serves them in even the smallest way. I'm grateful that I'm able to do that for everybody.
And I hope that if you're listening to this episode and maybe it's late at night and you're about to go to sleep, that you're going to cozy on down in the blanket, put the warm bottle in the inside, just like Mary said, shut off your phone and really get cozy and bring pleasure to sleep tonight. And I hope you sleep really, really well. So, last question for you today. Actually, sorry, I have two questions. One is there somebody in your circle or network that we should shine a spotlight on doing amazing things out in the world and potentially even interview on the Simplifiers podcast?
For those of you who are familiar with South by Southwest, it's a massive I don't even know what to call it, festival, conference, hub that happens in Austin, Texas every year. And there's this woman, her name is Kelly Krause, and she is a massive organizer for South by and such a connected woman, an amazing woman. She's doing great things. And I think that it would be great for you to have her on the podcast. She's awesome.
Yes, I know of Kelly, but we have not interviewed her yet, so that would be a perfect link. I mean, South by Southwest, you guys, if you've not attended, it is mega huge. It takes over the city almost now for a whole month. It used to be just a week-long festival. Okay, now here it is, my final question. And again, Carly, congratulations on launching your first book. I'm so proud of you, beyond measure. So again, somebody somewhere in the world is listening to this episode, and maybe, just maybe, she has not had a good night's rest in a very long time, and she's feeling a bit ragged and frazzled around the edges. What's one thing that you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her?
I would whisper a mantra into her ear, and a mantra that she could use as her head hits the pillow so that she could rest her mind and allow that chatter to quiet down. And I would give the mantra, just this, just now. And it's a mantra that an old yoga teacher gave to me. And what that means to me is, this is all I need to do right at this moment. I don't need to make my grocery list. I don't need to think about when I'm going to find my perfect partner. Just sleep, just now. That's what I would whisper to her.
Carly, thank you so much for being back on the podcast. Big love to you, girl. Big love.
Thank you. Thank you.